So today I'm going to be learning about Quebec. I think Quebec is one of the provinces in Canada that is very unique, has such a distinct culture, and yeah, I want to learn more about it. This is Quebec facts you need to know. So yeah, tell me if you're from Quebec, what you think about this. Tell me if there's what is interesting about Quebec in your opinion. If you're from any other part of Canada, tell me what you think about Quebec. Tell me what you think about people from Quebec, the Quebec culture, and so on. And tell me if you knew these facts. Let's check it out. And there's a pretty cool flag. It's very distinctive. And
Hi, welcome to 7 Fact. If you've just discovered this channel, just know that here you'll find an awesome collection of facts about every single country on Earth. Today's episode is about the Canadian province of Quebec, but there's a playlist containing all of the Canadian videos, so be sure to check it out. Don't forget to subscribe if you want to see more videos like this one. I upload twice a week, so it'll be worth it.
yeah, tell me what other province I should do this for.
Once upon a time, a large chunk of North America was a French colony called New France, and this colony began in Quebec. The first province to be claimed for France was in the Gaspé Peninsula in what is now the Canadian province of Quebec. It was from here that French explorers started to gradually colonize North America, all the way to New Orleans. But in the aftermath of the 7 Years' War in the mid-1700s, most of New France was transferred to Great Britain. The former French colony of Canada was recreated as the province of Quebec. But to this day, Quebec retains its French heritage and is for the most part a French-speaking province. Out of all the
Just to ask if it's not to do with that fact, but is that correct? This, if you can see the sort of lake thing here, is that like a real lake, or why is that so circular? I've never noticed that. Is that real? Is that just the map wrong here, or what? Tell me what that is. I found that quite interesting there.
a French-speaking province. Out of all the Canadian provinces, Quebec is the largest. If it were an independent country, it would be the 19th largest in the world. It's also the wettest.
Wow.
More than 500,000 lakes and 4,500 rivers occupy 12% of its surface. About 1/4 of Canada's population lives in Quebec. So naturally, this province is vital to the economy of the country, representing 20% of Canada's entire GDP.
Okay, those facts are quite... I never really knew them, are quite mind-blowing. They're actually... The size of Quebec, the importance to Canada, really can't be understated. Tell me if you feel that, being in Canada.
Quebec doesn't seem to be very pleased with its place in the Canadian Confederation. They held 2 referendums on sovereignty, one in 1980 and one in 1995. The second referendum was a very close call. It featured the largest voter turnout in Quebec's history at 93.52%, and 49.42% of the people voted to leave Canada.
Whoa.
That's right, less than 1% was missing for Quebec to become an independent nation. But this idea wasn't new, and during the 1960s the debate became violent. The Front de Libération du Québec was an actual paramilitary group that launched a series of propaganda and terrorism acts, including bombings, robberies, and attacks aimed at English institutions. They even kidnapped and murdered Quebec's vice premier. Nowadays, though, the atmosphere is a lot calmer, and this debate no longer seems to be a priority.
Is there still some sort of demand for independence for Quebec? Could you ever see it happening? Obviously, I'm from Scotland, so independence is quite a hot topic and has been for, I mean, you can say decades now, but the last decade or so definitely it's just not been out of the news, especially having the Scottish National Party as the main elected party in Scotland. But I think it's like really interesting that Quebec just seems like a part of Canada. interesting that they're trying to break away. I guess they have that very distinct culture. Maybe they feel like their own country in a way, but could you ever see that happening? What's the current thought on that?
The capital of Quebec is not Montreal, but Quebec City. This place is considered to be the oldest French-speaking community in North America and one of the oldest cities on the continent, having been founded in 1608. It's also one of those places in Canada where you need to speak French to get around. Almost 93% of the people are French-speaking Canadians. This isn't that surprising, since Quebec in its entirety is the only province whose population is mainly francophone, at roughly 78%. Quebec City is one of North America's most photographed cities, and it includes one of the world's most beautiful hotels, Chateau Frontenac.
That is a stunning
The
building.
intact fortress or citadel of Old Quebec is still surrounded by the fortified walls, making Quebec City the only remaining fortified city north of Mexico. If Quebec City is somewhat of a hidden gem, Montreal is definitely not. This world-renowned city is Quebec's largest urban agglomeration, and it is also primarily a French city. In fact, it's the second largest primarily French-speaking city in the world after Paris. Historically the commercial capital of Canada, Montreal was surpassed in population and in economic strength by Toronto in the 1970s. One of the coolest things about Montreal is its underground city. Officially called Réseau, it's a series of interconnected office towers, hotels, shopping centers, residential and commercial complexes, convention halls, universities, and performing arts venues, all connected directly to the city's underground metro system. 32 kilometers of tunnels connect these venues underground, which is particularly useful in the long cold winters of Montreal. Separate from Underground City, there are also several other museums and universities that also have such underground networks. How cool is that?
That is really cool, man. I would love to visit something like that. I've been to something similar when I went to Korea in Seoul. A lot of their underground and subway stations are connected, and it is kind of like an underground city. Maybe not to the real extent of this. That actually sounds great, like even convention centers, things like that. Tell me if you've been there, what's it actually like? Is it a pretty cool place? And tell me the differences between like Montreal and Quebec. How do they differ? How are they similar? If you had to choose one over the other, why? Where would you rather live and why? What is this place? Is that like some sort of big theme park or something?
In 1967, Montreal was the host of the World Expo. While planning and zoning possible sites for the expo, Montreal managed to come up with another great accomplishment. Instead of demolishing and reconfiguring new areas, they instead built new islands. At the time, the city was digging its largest subway line, and the rocks and soils excavated were perfect to create the man-made island of Notre Dame, the peninsula of Cité du Havre, and the enlargement of Ile Sainte-Hélène. The islands today contain an amusement park, a biodome, shopping malls, and tons of amenities. Notre Dame Island also houses the Gilles Villeneuve Circuit, which hosts the Canadian Grand Prix of Formula One. Maple syrup is one of the most beloved sweet condiments of the world, and the vast majority of it comes from Quebec. This province is by far the largest producer of maple syrup, responsible for 70% of the world's output. Be careful though, in order to qualify as maple syrup, the product must be made exclusively from maple sap and have a minimum of 66% sugar. Anything else is not maple syrup, but a cheap imitation. Tens of millions of liters of the stuff are made in Quebec by tens of thousands of farmers, so their dominance of the global market is unquestioned.
Yeah, okay. Oh, that's the end of it. Yeah, like in the UK, we actually have one. I think it's like a fake maple syrup. Not really, but they call it golden syrup. It's still very popular. A company called Tate and Leo, I think. And you can really taste the difference between the golden syrup in any other maple syrup. I think it's almost like comparing cava and champagne, although they're like similar. They've got similar characteristics. You can just really tell the difference in quality. I love maple syrup. Tell me how you like your maple, or what you like to put your maple syrup on. What's the best way to have it? But Quebec seems like a very interesting place, a very beautiful place as well. Got the main cities there. It talked about Quebec City and Montreal. But what about the rest of the provinces? What other interesting things are going on in the province itself? And yeah, I think the main thing to take away from that is just the sheer size and importance of Quebec to Canada. It's size-wise, landmass-wise, it seems huge, but the importance to the economy and stuff just for one province. So yeah, what would happen if they actually gained independence? Would that be a big loss for Canada? And yeah, as I mentioned before, or as I asked before, do you ever see Quebec gaining independence? Thanks.